John.
Good evening. Evening all.
Evening.
Good evening. Are we live anywhere yet, or can I ask Dave a question? Sorry?
We are live, yes.
Oh, we are. Okay.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, where's that 20 quid you owe me?
It's only to do with dog fouling, Dave. So.
Oh, cheers, John.
Yeah.
It wasn't me.
No, I know. I was going to ring, but I thought I didn't want to upset Jenny with it and leave a message. So I'll give you a buzz tomorrow.
Just leave it in the post box, John.
John, while we're just getting ready to start, could you possibly change the name? Just rename yourself as John Keane. You're down as 708479 at the moment, which is probably your prison number, is it? Or
possibly. How do I change it, Phil?
If you go up to the top
dots
and you click, you'll see three little dots.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, and you should see one of those is rename.
Yeah, got it.
And you click on that and you can change the name.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Just so residents know who we are.
A handsome beast behind you, Andrew.
Someone's got a nice hat.
Phil, that was a code for the previous meeting I did on Zoom. I had to enter a code, so there we are.
I've got my quiz number. Number one, you'll notice.
Oh, I see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't see you. Can't see you.
My video won't work. I've no idea why. That's why I left the meeting and logged back in again. But my video just won't work. I've been on it all day for school, and it just won't. It's not picking it up on Zoom for some reason.
You got the camera on the bottom left of your screen.
Yeah, I've tried that. It's ticked. USB live camera is ticked. I've tried it at the top on the settings. Won't let me do anything. So no idea why.
Try turning the light on.
I was going to say, have you taken the lens cap off?
Steve's come back.
Come on.
Steve.
That's what I do. Anyway, sorry, but I literally let me do it, so no idea why. I even said join with video, but no, it won't do it. So don't know why.
Okay. Could I ask, is that you, Ian, that's just joined on a phone?
I have.
Yeah, I thought I recognised.
Oh, you're all in your suit and ties. I'm in a boiler suit with a bit of string.
Yeah.
Hey, Noggin, we know you've only got 3 suits: your boiler suit, your wedding suit, and your birthday suit. I hope you're not in the third.
Yeah, well,
I've got a zip on my boiler suit. I've got a zip on my boiler suit, Ian.
You wouldn't have a boiler suit to fit you, John.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, the ratings for this have got from PG to 15.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
You have to be careful what you broadcast on Facebook Live, Russell.
But
exactly.
Mr. Hines can't wear a red one because that'll discolour the numbers.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. I think we are. It's 7:30 now, so we should start. Could I ask everyone to mute unless you're speaking, because otherwise a little bit of background noise causes everything to flicker over. And welcome to any residents that are watching on either Facebook or YouTube. So if we go to the open forum, now I know Steve Patrick, you wanted to talk about one of the planning applications. I will give you the option either to speak now, and can I ask, I can see there are someone called Linda's iPad, Andrew Wright, and Michelle from N are also showing, who are not councillors. Could I just ask you very quickly to unmute yourselves and just tell me if you wish to speak on anything?
Hello, Chair. It's Andrew Wright, Kirkby Diamond. I'm here to oversee or monitor the discussion regarding the 1 Wolverton Road planning application for the Markham family. And I don't intend to speak, but just to observe what's being discussed.
Okay, lovely.
Thank
you. Michelle?
Yes, I'm just here to listen. Thank you very much.
Okay. Are you a resident?
I was.
Part
Not
of.
All right. Okay.
And Martin Markham on Linda's iPad.
Right. Okay. So all of you. Right. Right. And then we've got Jess. Oh, is that you, Ed?
Yes, I'm on my wife's computer.
That's absolutely fine. Lovely. So I think that's got all of us. So I know Ed wants to speak, and I think I'll give him first shot in just a moment. Steve, I'll just give you a chance to think about your response to this. You can either speak in the open forum, or what I will normally do is when we get to the item on the agenda itself, if you're prepared to sort of, wait with us, and you can speak at that point. I know you want to speak on item.
Yes, that's fine, Bill.
What, you'll wait or you'll speak now?
I'll wait, yeah.
Okay, all right. In that case, I have sent to all councillors. Let's just see if I can bring it up. Right, here we go. 7.5. I can share this, but you've all received a proposal for a monthly food and drink evening at the sports ground during summer, which Ed from Bandit Food has sent to me by way of an email. We've got an item on the agenda to discuss it, but I suggested that Ed came along and just spoke to us, and if we've got any questions of him, then we can ask that now. So Ed, it's your email, but I resent what I sent as councillors back to you. First of all, can I check if all councillors have got it? Because otherwise I'll put it on the display.
Well, what's it about the eyes frog? What number is it on your agenda, please?
7.5.
7.5. Yes, councillors. And who's Ed?
Ed is from Bandit Food, the food
yep,
store.
Right, from outside the village hall. Yes,
correct. Yeah, that's right.
Chair, I know Ed, but I haven't seen the proposal for the hall. I've got it in the minutes. Is that what you're talking about?
It's in the file folder.
Oh, sorry. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
thank you.
If you look that up, is everyone else comfortable with this?
Yeah. I've got a problem, Phil, because I can't actually look at it because my screen is the live stream. So I'm trying to have a look.
Okay. Do you want me to share it then?
Yeah,
John?
I think so.
Yeah, it would help.
If you would.
Well, it's not going to help you, Ian. I don't.
Yeah. I'll give you a pig sandwich anytime.
Right. Can you all see that now? Is that showing?
That's fine, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah. Right. So, Ed, would you like to take us through this then? Ed?
Yep, sorry, just unmuting myself. Sorry, my dog is playing havoc. So basically, I was thinking we've been doing the street food outside the village hall over the course of the last kind of few months. Well, longer than that, actually, I think. And my idea was, ever since Sandeep Dowett did the pop-up pub, I've been thinking about getting a kind of a community event going. And it seems like the perfect time to kind of start thinking about it as it's kind of winter and kind of get things lined up if people were keen for it to happen. But I was thinking of moving it from the village hall, obviously initially because of COVID, and as we hopefully ease out of lockdown towards sort of April, May times, that we could start running a local kind of street food and drink event at the sports ground. Mainly because initially it would be an outside space. And I think the great thing about the pub, which the street food lacked, is obviously the drink. People like to come and eat and drink. The two go hand in hand together quite nicely. But what I thought, instead of kind of bringing in a third-party bar, sort of, like I don't know if you remember the pop-up pub, they had a beer garden there. My proposal would be that we get a 10 license, which we could do bandit to, and then we basically will stock the bar and either pay staff to run it or have volunteers to run the bar, and then all the profits, from the bar would then go to a cause for the village, either the first responder or something. So to kind of give people a kind of community feel, as opposed to just opening up an event just to try and sell some street food. It would kind of bring the community together and hopefully more of a kind of like a pop-up pub, basically, but a COVID-safe pop-up pub. The ultimate aim, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Eat Street, which happens in Stony Stratford, and there's one in Northampton as well that does very, very well. Originally, it was going to be called Noshampton, but I think they've changed it to something else. And the idea would basically be for Castlethorpe to have a much smaller scale, but then we could possibly start bringing in people from Hanslope and maybe, the local villages. And if it did take off and it went quite well, we could start offering other street food vendors to come in, so you wouldn't always be stuck with the same street food truck there. The possibility of either changing the vendor out, so we don't do it 1 month and someone else comes in and does it, or having 2 trucks there, or maybe a truck and a dessert truck, but always having the bar. Like I say, like we could probably staff it and then pay the staff and then all the profits, or we could get people to volunteer to run the bar. My wife's already said she'd do a shift. I could probably do a shift. I used to do bar work back in the day. But that's the kind of the idea. At this stage, I just wanted to run it past you all and see if there was an interest initially. And if there wasn't, that's absolutely fine. But it would be good for us as a company to get back out there as lockdown eases. And also, I think people need something to look forward to, is my feeling. And nothing is better than a burger and a beer. So that's kind of my proposal. I don't think there's anything else I've missed. Oh, initially, the bar would just be, like I say, Bandit would provide the stock, obviously take that for all the profits. And it would be kind of 1 ale, 1 lager, a cider, house red and white, and maybe some spirits and mixers, like a very simple, so nothing complicated. And then we kind of find our way as to what people wanted to drink as and when it went on.
All right, so I stop this share now and just we'll have a short discussion. Does anyone have any questions? Kay, unmute yourself. You need to unmute yourself, Kay. Kay, you need to unmute yourself.
Is she responding or not?
No, I don't think she is. Do you want to say something, Ian?
Yes, I would like to say anything. Yes, I think it's a very, very good idea. Yes, we ought to really have our own village pub, but apparently what they are doing, been doing outside the village hall has been delightful for some people, but not to everybody's taste. But as for running a bar, you couldn't get anybody better than Tom Winwood, that used to have the public house, that still does a lot of outside bars, and he would give you a fair percentage. And also, to the gentleman that's saying about the food, would it be using local food, i.e. what's produced in the village by me or anybody within the surrounding areas by anybody? Pork, beef, lamb, etc., etc.
Well, I think in fairness to Ed, I think he's offering his bandit food, which as the first one, which has got its own sources anyway. But I mean, I think we're talking.
That is not to everybody's taste.
No, it's not. But can I just say, what we're really after here is in fact, the way I'm proposing that we take this is, obviously we're in very early days because of COVID, and we don't know what the situation is going to be. So I really wanted questions of Ed about how it would go. And then when we get to the meeting and come to a decision, I will be proposing that as the situation develops, Ed and the sports ground committee, chaired by Russell, work out what the details are on that to go forward. I think it's a bit premature trying to go into too much detail at this stage because we really don't know what's happening.
That's quite correct.
Okay, right, Kay then.
Sorry, I'm having major problems tonight with Zoom. Anyway, okay. All I was going to say is I think it's a fabulous idea, and food's really popular already. He does great food, which lots of people like, and I think the idea of getting together and actually bringing other people in, I think that's really, really good. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to be, you know, cognizant of any concerns that the neighbours might have in Thrupp Close, because that's the main entrance, and I think certainly it would be step by step as it's expanded. I mean, I can't really see anyone objecting very much to a monthly relatively small activity, or reasonably objecting, but obviously if it became larger, then you know, it might become something we have to worry about. Any other questions?
And I'll volunteer as well for the bar, because then all the profits would go to the village rather than taking a percentage.
You'll drink it all, yes.
Yes, yeah.
I don't drink.
I think I've got John Keane next, if he'd like to speak.
Thanks, Phil. Only really supporting what Kay has said, and I think Jed's done a good job so far. It seems very popular, and I thank him for the initiative of putting that forward. But I agree with you, it's step by step.
Andrew, did you want to speak?
Yeah, only just to say, yeah, great idea, and I think it's done a lot for community. The problem is that it's a bit difficult for me because the food's tempting and I'm on a bloody diet, and the kids absolutely love it and it's bankrupting me. Other than that, no, fully support.
Okay, all right.
Right. Can I come back on another thing then, please?
Oh yes, okay, Ian.
If it does go forward, who is responsible for public liability, etc., on foods and any accidents, etc., up there?
Yeah. Well,
which I have to pay a lot of money for.
Yeah. Well, we will have to talk about that as we go forward.
Yes, I know. Just something to be kept on the agenda, though.
Yeah, yeah. Ed is just raising his hand. Ed, did you want to respond to that at this time?
I'd need to look into it some more, but as a company, we have public liability insurance for our truck. So I just need to look at the legalities of the bar, which might be...
Well, the parish council is parish council premises, and we obviously also have public liability insurance. And perhaps I could ask Steve Bradbury if he could have a look at our policy as we go forward. This isn't going to happen overnight. As we go forward, and check to make sure that the concerns that Ian has raised are addressed. Yeah.
Will do.
Anything else before we move on? Okay.
Just a really quick one. Anybody who's listening on the live stream, maybe they'd like to say whether they would like that or not. Maybe.
Yeah. Certainly can do. Yeah.
Drop a comment.
Yeah. Well, you can put a comment under if you're watching on Facebook, on the Facebook stream. Right. Shall we? Does anyone else think?
There's a hand up from Michelle.
I'm sorry, George. Was that you?
Yeah, I can see a hand up at the bottom of my screen.
Oh, right. Okay, I can't. But
sorry, it's gone now.
Did someone else want to speak? No. Okay, in that case, unless you've got anything else you want to add, Ed, thank you very much for coming along. And as I say, I think we'll hopefully it will be just what I said, that we'll agree to go forward with you and the Sports Ground Committee working out the details in due course. Okay, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay or drop off as you like.
No, that's fine. Thanks for listening.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Right, I don't think anyone else wanted to speak on the open forum. I did have a note from Tony Bracey, who rang me earlier this evening. He may well be listening on Facebook, just to say that there are a lot more potholes up alongside the Navy, and as soon as the weather is a little bit better, he will measure them and then report them through to to Fix My Road, which effectively goes to North Hants. Right, in that case, if there's nothing else that anyone wants to raise at this time, we'll move into the parish council meeting. First of all, apologies for absence. We're all here, aren't we?
Yep, all here.
All here. That's very good.
I'll look through it.
Can we have any declarations of interest, please?
5 point whatever number.
5.1.
5.1.
5.3.
5.3 rather.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll just ask you to remain silent through that, Ian. There's nothing else.
You've got no problem at all with that.
Well, we usually do, Ian, but there we go.
Not on that particular subject. I've told you before, and I'll tell you again. Not my problem.
Don't worry. That was a joke. Right. Shall we move on then to the clerk's report?
Minutes of last meeting, Phil.
Oh, sorry. Minutes of last meeting. Here we go. Now we've got you there, Steve. Right. Are there any matters of accuracy in the last minutes that anyone would like to raise?
I don't know because I wasn't attending.
That's fine. Anyone else? In that case, can I have a proposer from someone who's there? That's Russell. And I need a seconder as well, which is Kay. And all in favour, then that's unanimous. Thank you. So we'll now move on to the clerk's report. So looking at
Are you going to put it up, Phil?
Oh yeah, I'll put it up. Thank you. Right, can everyone see that now? Is there anything you wanted to draw our attention to? There's quite a lot of information in here, Steve. Is there anything in particular you'd like to raise?
For a change, I don't think so, Phil.
Right. I think, by the way, we do owe Steve and Darren our thanks for doing the response on the cycling infrastructure plan, because it ended up being very tight against the deadline, and they put together a nice document there, which I hope will have some weight. And certainly, can I just check, Steve, have the ward councillors got copies of that?
Right, okay, what I'll do, the final version, I don't think anyone's got a copy of, Phil. I will send out the final comments after this meeting.
Yeah, and I would ask
the parish and ward councillors.
Yeah, and I would ask ward councillors if the appropriate forums come up, please to discuss this. And for the benefit of residents watching, what we have said is our priority on the cycling infrastructure is improvement of the cycleway between the bridge at the bottom of Fox Covert Lane and the path at the back of Lodge Farm Business Centre, where it curves round to Havisham. From that point on, it was surfaced about 10 years ago, but we really want the rest of it upgrading to a reasonable standard, because it's cycling through mud at the moment, which is not very practical or indeed safe at times. We have got we've got some correspondence about flooding in Bullington End Road, and I have asked, I have written to the appropriate officer, who is Andy D, Andrew and George, and I don't know whether it's worth following up with him, because I haven't had a response on that. But that's continuing flooding, and it really needs, I think, a new drain at the top of one of the properties. The person who wrote to us, well, actually 2 new drains to be put in, surface water drains, to stop water flooding down the drives and into their garages.
It may be worth following up with Andy D. George is getting quite an expert on this sort of thing. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, but actually Carl Devereaux is usually sort of more responsive at getting out and coming and looking at these sort of things, and he's the one who would probably kind of take the lead on it. George, do you want to say anything else?
No, apart from the fact that they are short-staffed and have got a massive backlog, so nothing on drains is happening that quickly. But Carl's pretty good at getting stuff done.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he did a cracking job on clearing the blockages in the existing drains in Bullington End Road and in North Street. And indeed, those North Street drains did take the water from that very heavy downpour we discussed at our last meeting, thanks to Carl. So he's a good bloke, but this does need 2 new drains putting in, which may be an issue. But I'm happy to. Do you want me to write to Carl, or will you take it up, George, or what?
Yeah, I'm happy to escalate it with Carl. If you've got a reference number, if you've reported it on the MKC system, that would help me if you could send that to me.
No,
please.
I wrote directly to Andy D.
Right. Okay. We need
Andy D, because we said Carl Devereaux. It's Andy Dickinson, of course.
Yeah,
But,
we also need to make sure that they're registered on the MKC system.
Right. Okay.
Well, could I take this? Could I take this back a few years ago? When you were first on there, Mr. House, it was when Karen Hill was on the parish council clerk, and they were desperately trying to resurface Bullington End Road and get the drain sorted out. And we're going back a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, the one outside the end house was meant to have been put in together with curbing, which is meant to be in the.
It's correct. Which Simon Hill didn't do.
No. Well, let's not go into history. It was scheduled. It's in the MKC schedule to put up curbing at the end of Bullington End Road, going up by the build out. But there's actually needs to be a new drain up there as well. I'll lodge it in the system, and I'll perhaps forward to Carl Devereaux the email I sent to Andy Dickinson and ask him if he can pick up again on this drainage, because it really isn't fair on the householders to have water coming and flooding their garages. Right. Just looking.
Phil, if I can just go in there, we've had this conversation or very similar on Havisham Parish Council, and one of the things Carl Devereaux is very forceful about is to make sure that as well. I mean, it's fine going to him or to Andrew Dixon, but we do need to make sure that it's actually logged on the system, because that's what actually does the schedules.
Yeah, okay, I will do that tomorrow. Okay, moving on. I gather it's actually not yet determined whether there are going to be elections on the 6th of May, but the more important point for us is whether these meetings have got to be held physical from that date. There is a lobby day with local MPs in Bucks and Milton Keynes. Actually, it's Ian Stewart rather than Ben Everett. Tomorrow, and there are about 4 or 5 issues that the county association wants to raise, and one of them I will join for with Ian, which is that remote meeting should continue, because I don't know, Russell can probably tell us how many people are watching on Facebook at the moment, but typically
we've had up to 20 at the moment. That's 17.
Yeah, so we have about 20 people on Facebook, and we have about 20 people usually watch on YouTube. So it's like 40 people compared to usually we had
an ordinary meeting.
One or 2 people at a physical meeting. I think it's much more democratic. Anyway, that's tomorrow. And we should therefore hold our annual parish meeting on its normal date of the 12th of April, rather than pushing it back after May, because I don't really want that one to be physical. Right, anything else anyone wants to raise on the clerk's report? In that case, I'll stop that share. And we'll move on then to planning applications. So at this point, I will suspend the meeting and invite Steve Patrick to speak on item 5.1.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep this very brief. But this planning application has major issues. The biggest problem with this application is it infringes the Castlethorpe neighbourhood plan in many ways. The flat roof at the rear is much higher than the current gutter line of the garage. So that's an infringement. The bifold doors which go across the whole of the back of the property also infringe the plan. But one of the biggest problems with this application is the removal of the double garage door and replacement with a front door and window. This is a large double garage which is extended at the back. It has an internal toilet and becomes a large gym area. There's no internal access to this gym. There's absolutely no other explanation for the front door other than to transact business on the premises with visiting customers. There's another issue with the front door in terms of it will make the property very easy to convert to a separate dwelling. So in other words, it's a stepping stone application. There's been some other cases in Milton Keynes where this has happened. Conversions have been done, and then they've been converted into annexes, and then they've been converted into residences. This will open the floodgates on Shepperton Close. There's some other key issues with the gym as well. We already have noise from Zoom classes already. This will only get worse. Number 14 is linked detached with number 12 by a single brick garage. The noise that they will have will be horrendous. It will bring many other problems, parking problems, danger to children that often play in the street, small children. This is a residential area and not the place for a commercial gym. I don't know if the council's looked at the number of objections on Milton Keynes' website, but there's quite a number of people in the village and Shepperton Close who object to this on the grounds that it infringes the neighbourhood plan, but also on the grounds of the noise and problems it will cause. There's quite a number of objections. I would encourage the parish council to encourage Milton Keynes Council to uphold the Castlethorpe neighbourhood plan. I'll not do any more great detail and bring it to a halt there, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, can I just ask a question? You mentioned something I hadn't picked up on before, Steve. Is between the two garages, is it just a single brick, or do both garages have a single brick, if you see what I mean?
I believe from my neighbours it's a single brick garage, yes. Single brick.
Certainly, I think any attempt to make that habitable would need a further brick or other means of insulation. Okay,
Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions for Steve before we return to the parish council meeting?
Yes, I would. I know where Steve's coming from, etc. Is yes, between 12 and 14 is a single brick. We have had a number of things changed in Shepperton Close, especially number 20, but that was a certain reason why, and it was done correctly to planning applications. Yes, we weren't entitled, or we weren't happy with the simple fact an extra house was built across the other side of the road, but it's been done to build in regs, which is correct. But as between 12 and 14, I think that'd be a nightmare for people in 14.
Yeah, we'll come on. Have you got any questions for Steve though? Because we'll come on to our discussion in just a moment, Ian.
Right.
No. Okay. In that case, I'll resume the meeting. If you could mute yourself again, please, Steve. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Now, what I'm going to do is there are in the folder which we make up for parish councillors, you'll see there are 3 pieces of correspondence from the public. I think one of them is an image, I think 2 of them, one of which is an image file, is from Steve, and there's another from another resident in that area writing to us as opposed to writing to. So, but what I would like to do is to go to a prepared response that I would invite the parish council to consider sending. I might well suggest that we add in, hold on a minute, let me just make sure I've got the right one. Right, if you can see this, I mean, this offends so many of our planning policies that it's almost difficult to know where to start. But this is effectively a resubmission of a previous application to which we objected. The roof dormer, rear dormer, has been taken out from this, which is pretty good. But I think, you know, again, it repeats here that the parish council doesn't, in principle, object to the conversion of a garage to a gym. And indeed, we offered no objection to one in Station Road, only at our last meeting. But that was not within a character area as defined within our neighbourhood plan. The scale of it is also to what I think we object. You can see the other comments, if everyone can read that. Everyone can see this easily, yeah? I'll just scroll down a little bit more. I'm assuming you can only see what I can see here. So the paragraph that's now at the top of my screen said, you know, highly stylized near Georgian estate. I think actually, I might actually suggest that we also remove that permitted development rights have been removed on the estate, because I did see in one of the letters from the resident that she said that the case officer had said that she wasn't concerned with the chains at the front of the double garage doors.
Can I clarify that, Chair?
Yeah.
I did write back to the lady that wrote to me, and she did go back to the case officer. I told her that there weren't permitted development rights on Shepperton Close, and perhaps that she picked up the wrong end of the stick, either her or the case officer. She went back to the case officer, and the case officer agreed that were there any changes to the front elevation, then planning permission would be required.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Yes, because that was, I have to say, that was slightly alarming when I read that in the.
Yeah, it alarmed me as well.
Yeah. So if I now move to planning policies, and for any residents that are watching, you can't just oppose a planning application because you don't like it. You have to have reasons, usually reasons based in planning policies. These are the relevant planning policies. Planning policy 3 in our neighbourhood plan, which talks about the design there, and extensions and other building works to existing buildings will be required to be constructed from materials and design matching the existing building. And that includes explicitly all properties in Shepperton Close. MK planning policy D2, where you've got to maintain the strong positive character. Again, policy D3, design of buildings, where you've got to, again, enhance it. And buildings got to be appropriate in scale to other buildings and don't detract from the character of the existing buildings in the surrounding area, all of which this conversion of a garage would do. So I'm now just scrolling down to the objections. So I'm suggesting that we write that the application will substantially damage the front view of the property with an outer character door in the converted garage visible from the public highway, and it will not be similar to designs in adjacent buildings required by our policy number 3. The second objection is to do with those MK planning policies, design policies D2 and D3. And then the third point is really to do with what we believe is likely to happen here. There isn't an internal access, as Steve Patrick has pointed out, and a WC is being provided despite the fact there's already one on the ground floor of the existing building. So it looks as if it's intended as a standalone building, and it looks as if it's going to be for commercial purposes. And indeed, there is a gym business registered by the owner. So that would require a separate planning permission, and I don't think there should be a kind of switch and bait on these things where you apply for it, you know, as if it's domestic, and then try and move it up to business. But in any case, there are covenants there, in particular one that says that no trade or business should be carried upon on the land of the houses in Shepperton Close. And there's also one about nuisance. So I'm suggesting that should the case officer be minded to approve, the parish council objects that it's determined at development control panel, and will provide a speaker to object. And again, for residents watching this, the parish councils in Milton Keynes have got the privilege of being able to call in planning applications that to be determined at development control panel or development control committee, depending on where it needs to go, rather than being determined by an individual officer under delegated powers. Now, frankly, you could add an awful lot more to this. You just keep going because it's such a poor application. Can I ask if there are any questions? Shall I stop the share? Does anyone need me to keep the share up? Right, stop the share and we'll go back to the meeting. Right, I see John's hand first, and then Case, and then Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. I think, having read this thoroughly, it's inconceivable that any planning officer would pass this. But I think your last sentence captures that. But I think this document that you propose to send is fine and covers all the points that we would wish.
Yeah. And if there are any other points, we can bring them up at when we speak. Kay, I think you were next.
I think the main point is that they want to basically change it to commercial use. And I'd like to see maybe a little bit more of that in there, that there is actually, isn't it Rose Gold Gyms, I think it is, that's already registered there. It's fairly obvious that what they want to do with it, because they want a separate entrance, they've got the downstairs loo, it's a huge space. They're not just going to stick an exercise bike in there and use it. So to me, that would be the main thing. It's they're literally going to want to run a business from there, where there would be lots of toing and froing, and as you said, lots of problems with parking and things like that, which would be a major concern.
Yeah, I mean, we can bring, you know, we can, I mean, it's a reasonably large section 3. In fact, it's the largest of the 3 objections if you look at it. But I mean, we can add in and, you know, quite a lot when we speak, if it's necessary to do so. Andrew, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, and I'm just going to start by saying something that that I hadn't planned to, but that was triggered by John's comment. I'm going to quote you on that. I can't see how a planning officer could conceivably pass this. John, if I had a quid for every time I'd said that in the last 19 years that I've sat on development control, I'd be a pretty wealthy man. I think, Phil, the way that you've prepared the response is pretty good, and particularly points 1 and 2. However, I'm sure I'm not going to be popular when I say this, but I've got to advise you of this. I think you're on a little bit of thin ice around number 3. The reason being is that you can't object to something that you think it might be or might be intended to be. You can only object to what they're applying for. And at the moment, there isn't any evidence, although you have strong suspicions as to what will come afterwards, there isn't any evidence that this is being applied for as a commercial venture. What needs to happen is they do it, and then if they want to turn it into a commercial venture, that would require a further application. Covenants, as we know, really don't come into planning because you just apply to have them lifted. Frankly, they aren't worth the paper they're written on. They're there. They're an obstacle, but you can apply to have them lifted, and they can be lifted. And that's a legal manoeuvre rather than a planning one. So whilst I fully appreciate and understand the concerns you've got, and I fully understand why you want to flag them, it may be best that you do it in a slightly different way to what you're doing now. And that is by kind of asking a question around this as to say, has this been, can we just clarify that this is an application for personal use only? And if the answer to that is no, then you have a ground to object. But if the answer to that is they haven't applied for a commercial venture, then you can only object to what's in front of you, not what you suspect it may be turning into. I know that's not particularly helpful, but it is there. The other thing I should say, and this is not in response to what you've planned out, but it is in response to what Steve Patrick said earlier, and I have read his submission, which I think on the whole is very good. You can't kind of object to anything either that says this is setting a precedent. As we're consistently told, there is no precedent in planning. Everything is considered on its own merits. Now, the merits of this are pretty poor. I absolutely agree. But you can't say if this is granted, then somebody else could be granted permission to do that, because it doesn't follow like that. Everything is discussed on its own merits. I think the only other thing I'd add in while I've got the floor is that, look, there have been, and I think it was Ian who said it actually, there have been changes to houses in Shepperton Close, both to divide them, split them up, to do things that change the outside appearance, but they've been done sensitively, they've been done properly. They've been done actually in collaboration with you guys and with the Milton Keynes Council planners. And I recall one where, you started at some distance apart, worked together and got to where you wanted to be. So it isn't like you're just being objectionable, but this is a pretty poor application. I just do urge you to exercise some caution around 3 and maybe consider the rewording of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
thank you, Andrew.
I can certainly add that. I mean, I would just make the point. I had got this in here actually, but there are 2 other. I'm just wondering whether I've put the latest one in here. Oh yes, there are. Yes, in the 3rd paragraph at the top of this, there are 2 other garage conversions, numbers 11 and 47, but these have been 2-story with matching roofs. And frankly, I struggled to work out that they had been converted. Actually, they looked so much part of the original, and we had 23A, which we worked with the applicant, and we've got something, and it looks perfectly of a kind with the rest of the terrace now.
Number 11 was done 20-something years ago.
Yeah, but they are all of a piece now. Anyway.
Yes, it was all of a piece. We had an argument at the time. We had.
Yeah. Ian, please. I'll come to you, Ian. Ian, I'll come to you, but I've got Russell next, and then I've got George.
Right, I was just going to say, going back to what Andrew said about the planning officer, I'm very surprised that she didn't appear to know that the development rights have been removed from Shepperton, and also the fact that she obviously hadn't read the neighbourhood plan.
Okay, well, okay. George.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to say exactly the same as Andrew did, and I'm quite chuffed that it appears that I've actually learned something in the 2 years that I've been a councillor, because I had exactly the same worries about the wording of paragraph 3 and the fact that what might happen isn't a material consideration. But what I was going to suggest, and what Andrew didn't suggest, so I suspect I might not know everything after all, was if you're really worried about that, whether an avenue to go down would be to ask for a condition put on the permission saying that there must be no commercial use.
Actually, that is a good point.
No, I don't disagree at all. You've probably done it a better way than I have. Whether that could be considered a reasonable condition or not would be a debate to have with the planning officer, but it's certainly a good question to ask, yeah.
Okay. Right, Ian, did you want to add anything else?
Yes, number 11, when it was converted, must be 20-something years ago.
But look, Ian, let's not go back, because there is no precedent in planning. And I don't think, I mean, do you want to add anything?
You have your way, and I can't say nothing then.
No. Is there anything you want to say on this one, Ian?
Well, it concerns that one because where 11 was converted from in the first place.
Yeah, but
Ian, 11 was converted before the
CMP.
Before the neighbourhood plan, yes, I do
before the
know
neighbouring
that.
houses were an area of character area. So you know that number 11's got nothing to do with current development.
Oh God!
All right.
Carry on.
Okay. So I'm proposing that I'll try and adjust the wording in this third objection to ask to clarify that it's for personal use, and if not, a condition that it is only for personal use to be put on there, given that it's, you know, there are these covenants, and can I, subject to that, can I have the agreement of the council that we go forward with that, please? Yeah.
No problem.
You okay with that, Ian?
Not a problem.
Chair,
Right.
can I just ask? So, of course, the deadline is the 4th. Can I ask that gets circulated to parish councillors just to make sure that it's truly reflective of what's been discussed at the meeting before we send it off?
That's going to be very tight, but I will do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is what, tomorrow's the 2nd, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's.
If I could just help with that, Chair. If you get the request to call this into panel in tomorrow, regardless of anything else, that effectively buys you extra time, because although the statutory time runs out, anything you send in up until the meeting will be considered and will be presented to the panel, even if it's not included in the officer report. So at the very least, wing in the request to call it into DCP tomorrow, and that buys you a little bit of extra time to do the final details.
Look, really, I will do this tomorrow, and Steve can circulate it, and we'll get it in by the 4th. It's really not going to be a lot of words. It's just, as you know, what George and yourself said, Andrew, in that number 3. Okay, I take it I've got agreement to go forward on that. So we'll now move to 5.2, which is number 42, South Street. And again, I have got a very short proposal, which I put up this afternoon when I was looking at this, which I will share on the screen. For members of the public, this is number 42 is in the middle of the row of Edwardian houses to the left of the entrance into Maltings Field. So between Maltings Farm and Maltings Field. And this
is that the first, second or third one down from Maltings Farmhouse?
Yeah, one of, I think it might be the, how many are there? 4, is it, Ian? I think it might be the third one.
There's 4 there, yes.
Yeah, so I think it's the third one away from the farmhouse. So in other words, the second one from the end at the Maltings Field one. Okay. And basically they've applied for to put a very large dormer on the rear of the building, and also front roof lights on the front. So let me just now share the proposed response here. Here we go. So I'm proposing that we object to this because the rear roof extension doesn't comply with our policy, which in the modified plan is CAS4, but it existed in exactly the same format in the original neighbourhood plan. In the extension does not reflect the historic character and scale of the surrounding buildings. That's the phrase in the neighbourhood plan policy. It doesn't have a roof pitch between 25 and 45 degrees, which it's meant to have. The building is meant to only have 2 stories, and the materials don't match. They're required to be matching brick, and this is timber cladding. And to be honest, it rather looks as if you're taking a flat roof garden shed and stuck it on the back of the roof. I mean, it's you know, it would be like that. On the front, in the emerging modified neighbourhood plan, which, as you all know, has been through examination, and this particular element was not subject to any issues with the examiner. We have got some other issues, as you know, but front roof, so this must be given some weight. Front roof lights are not permitted on the front roofs of buildings of local interest under CAS 5, which requires preservation of the front roof line of these buildings. The rear extension is so large that it would result in, again, a quote from the CAS 5, harm to a building of local interest. And I'm therefore suggesting we object to this, and if the case officer is minded to approve, require that determination is made by a DCP, for which we provide a speaker. Okay, can I open the floor? Does anyone need me? Can I close the share? Does anyone need that up still?
Yes, I would. Is this not looking out onto Paddock Close?
Well, the front does. The rear obviously doesn't.
Right. Just a question that was asked to me, and I'm just trying to place where it is myself in my head, because this question only came to me today.
Yeah, I mean, that row of Edwardian houses, say it's the second to last one on the left as you go down towards Maltings Field. Yeah, and so the front definitely does look out over the paddock, the South Street paddock, and the rear is pointing at I guess Paddock Close. Kay.
Paddock Close, yes.
It's where Ollie used to live. Does that make it any better?
No.
It's the second one along on the left hand. As you look at Maltings, it's the second one on your left hand side
with the brown plaque.
Yeah. Does anyone wish to speak? To suggest any modification to this proposal?
All I can say, if it doesn't coerce with our neighbourhood plan, what are you going to do about it? Write in and refuse it, won't you?
Yeah. Well, I'd hope so. I do think it would spoil what is a very lovely building, actually, or terrace of buildings. Anyway, did you want to speak, Russell?
I just want to say that you've summed up exactly what I thought about it when I saw the plans, even down to the dumping a shed on the roof as well.
Yes. Okay. In that case, can I formally ask for a vote to approve, just to make sure?
No problem.
Unanimous.
Have a look at it.
So you're happy with this, are you, in?
In a fashion, yes. It's got to be looked at to see if they're not doing anything we don't need in the village.
Yeah,
we're an eyesore.
Yeah. I think we can take. Yes, I mean this is a formal objection to a planning application. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you very much. That's unanimous then. Right. Now we move on to.
I'm quiet. Don't worry.
Ian says it's withdrawn from the meeting.
Oh right. Okay.
I'm quiet.
Right. Well, I will invite, as we've got Martin and Michelle here. I know Andrew said he wouldn't. Andrew Wright said he wouldn't speak. Did either of you wish to speak at this point before we go on to 5.3? I'm happy to suspend the meeting for you to speak if you'd like to.
No, thank you very much. I just want to listen.
Okay. Same here.
Right. Right. Again, I've looked at the plans for these, and it does seem to me to be very similar to the. I'm just trying to open this up to share it. It does look to me to be very similar to the application made last year. So let me just pull this up. As I say, we've got, as we said last time, we have no objection in principle to a new dwelling being constructed at the site, nor to the proposed design of the building itself. However, that new building does access the public highway onto Bullington End Road. And we did request that the orientation was rotated 90 degrees so it faces the road from which it's accessed. And that's actually in compliance with the Plan MK policy, the design policy D1, section A, subsection 2. So we would ask that is rotated. I think there's plenty of space to do that. But once again, and I've almost repeated the words that we made in our previous objection here, we really strongly object to the new access proposed for the existing dwelling onto Wolverton Road, because it's going to be very close to the traffic calming build out, which actually forces all traffic onto the side of the road by the proposed access. And I speak, as I said last time, as one of the two councillors who operates the speed indicator device, which sits immediately opposite there. And there are some quite high speeds that come through there. And of course, incoming vehicles are, of course, on the wrong side of the road because they're forced to cross because of the build out. Now, I'm saying I do think that access would be extremely dangerous. And I would ask the applicant, or suggest that we ask the applicant, either to retain the existing access entrance or a new shared access on Bullington End Road. Understand that this is prevents a clean break. However, in discussion this afternoon, and indeed reading one of the reports that was submitted with this new application, by the applicant, it did talk about possibly relocating the traffic build out so that it's further away from the village. I mean, we don't in principle have an objection to access onto Wolverton Road. I mean, a few yards further up the road, the Sawbridges, Rosemary Sawbridge comes out and onto the road there. So this isn't a matter of principle, it's a matter of safety. And if that build out, indeed, if you look at the applicant's document, which I actually have got here and could show you, it actually shows a picture of a car, coming on the wrong side of the road, or pulling in, by the build out, which is pretty much where the entrance would be. Now, I agree that the access has been splayed to give better vision, but I still just feel it's more dangerous. And I personally would also be happy if the build out and the I have a feeling that may have a knock-on effect to where the 30-mile-an-hour zone starts, but that's a highways matter. But if the build out was moved a bit further down the road, I personally would be happy with that second access. So I'm respectfully asking the applicant to modify its application on those orientation and access. And again, as with the previous ones, very unusual for us, given that we don't normally, very rarely do object. We would, if a case officer's minded to approve, then we would ask the decision to be referred to development control and speak there as before. So does anyone need me to leave this up on the screen at the moment? In which case I will stop and go back to the meeting and ask if anyone would like to raise any points on this. No?
Did you say
it is very, yeah. Go on, Kay.
You said you had a picture that you could share with us?
So this is called It's Right. You see there, this is by the applicant's highways consultants. And you can see there pretty much where that, that repaired strip is, I think is where the access would come out. So you can see how close it would be. And you can, have you all seen the picture? I'll just scroll down and show you the text. I think it's just below here from memory. Yeah, if you can see it, just above where it says 7 in the left-hand margin, it says it is suggested that a further consultant, I assume consultation, is undertaken with the Local Highways Authority to confirm the need to relocate the existing traffic calming feature or not. Now it says, the frequency of larger design vehicles using this access is considered to be very low, and that is true. I personally would like to see that moved rather than to be left, where it is, which I think is very close. Has everyone seen that?
What do they mean by a low design vehicle? Sorry, being thick.
Oh, lorries, big lorries.
Surely you get loads of lorries going through the village.
Well, there are actually the green waste lorries apart from everything else.
Yeah. There's quite a few, to be honest. But
yeah. But I mean, I was really showing this, that the applicant has talked about relocating this. And I personally, in looking at this for a second time, I wouldn't, I felt very strongly, as you know, or feel very strongly, because, Dave Hines and I operate this SID and we see what the speeds are coming through at all the entrances, but at this entrance, and they are high. I mean, 35 miles an hour sounds low, but that's at the intervention level, and it goes up to 44. And those are what are called the 85th percentile. In other words, 85% of the vehicles are below that speed. So that's not a good thing. Okay.
But wouldn't just moving it further away from the village mean that they would slow down for the gap and then just start speeding again towards the village, though? I'm just being...
Well, they might. I mean, there is a 20 mile an hour zone not that much further ahead. Can I stop the share, or would people like it up still?
That's fine.
It's easier to see everybody. I can see Dave. Dave has got his hand up. Dave.
Yeah, hi, Phil. I was just going to reiterate what you'd already said, actually, and probably answering what Kate's just asked. The whole point about where the speed restriction area is it forces cars onto the other side of the road to come through, which is exactly where the entrance to the house is proposed for. So that is the problem. But by moving the speed restrictions further down, the cars will be on the right side of the road by the entrance.
Understand
that makes sense?
What I'm wondering is whether the whole point of I'm presuming the whole point of the width restriction is to slow traffic coming into the village.
Yes,
it is. Yeah.
If you move it away, they can just rev up. And I'm just thinking of all sides on this. Okay, it would just give them time to actually speed up back into the village. That was all.
There would be a 30 mile an hour sign clearly visible, though.
Does that make a difference to some people?
Well, it should do, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, I do think, we've got, Dave will tell you that Station Road, you get people who speed down there. I can tell you that the residents on Hanslope Road absolutely hate that, because people can speed up when they've got through it. I mean, if people are going to speed up the moment they've got a bit of road that isn't, as bent as a dog's leg, then they will do that. And we do, of course, have a good relationship with the police, and they do come out, and they were all stacked up in Lodge Farm Court the other day, as I reported at the last meeting, because of that. I rather wish they hadn't told all the drivers that this was done because of the data that Phil Ailes had given them, but there you go.
What I was wondering is whether it would be possible to put in like a speed hump or something.
No, the problem with speed humps is they're very noisy, and I've actually discussed along there putting speed humps in, and it would be dangerous because of the way that vehicles have to turn into Fox Covert Lane and indeed into Bullington End Road. So the road safety officers have said they wouldn't want speed humps. And I would also mention that we did actually at one point put in what are those noisy things called?
Rumble strips.
Rumble strips down there.
Took them out.
It's so noisy that most of Bullington End Road, and indeed going into North Street, all were complaining vociferously about how noisy it was. So I really don't think we can do
Well, they actually just put the rumble strips in and then decided they were going to resurface the road, didn't they? And just managed to cover them.
Yeah. Well, we asked that. If you remember, we did have a parish council resolution to ask them to cover them rather than reinstate.
Yeah.
No objection to it being moved. I was just playing devil's advocate, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are the options. I hope that's being reasonable. Oh, George, sorry, I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be interested to see whether my more experienced colleague agrees with me on this occasion. I'm not entirely sure that you can request for a building to be rotated by 90 degrees on a planning commission. That's rather too much for a condition. So you'd have to actually object to this, and you could say in your reason for objection that you think it should face the other way, but they would have to withdraw the permission and resubmit, I think, rather than be able to do this at planning panel or committee.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure why it wasn't done last time, given that we did ask for this, but, you know, we're in a meeting now, so I don't really want to get into a discussion with the applicant. I'm proposing that we send a response as written, and does anyone else want to speak on that before I ask us to vote? In that case, can I ask all in favour? Yeah. Okay, unanimous with obviously Ian now rejoining the meeting.
Yeah, I hope so.
So we will now move on to section 6, and rather than going through these one by one, I just ask if anyone has any questions on any of the previous planning applications covered in section 6. So for residents, these have already been discussed by the parish council at previous meetings, and this just tracks the progress of them. No, in that case, I'd now like to move to item 7. In fact, we don't need the public excluded item, so a part 2, so we can leave that. There's been no action on Maltings 2, as I previously as was in the clerk's report. So 7.2 is the next action, which is on the revised neighbourhood plan. And I think I need to speak. There are 2 things here really. And I'm going to need to find a couple of the documents. The first one is what is called could-should. When we modified the original neighbourhood plan, said that the new buildings in Maltings 2 should echo the design or take their design cue from Paddock Close. That's what we intended. When we engaged with Stonewater, they submitted very different designs, and when we discussed it with them, they said, "Oh, goodness gracious, we didn't think you meant exactly the same." So we said, "Well, we didn't mean exactly the same, because clearly you're going to have, you know, different styles of houses, and, you know, 5-bedroom and 3-bedroom, etc., etc. But we did want, you know, a number of the features there." And they made some very small concession, but we really didn't think it was very satisfactory. When we did the modified neighbourhood plan, we thought, well, we'll take advantage of this and try and strengthen it. So we put in a sentence about recessed porches, stone lintels and bay windows, which are actually a feature of Paddock Close. And our advisor, David Blandammer, said, well, that's getting very prescriptive. You ought to change the word should to could, which we did. When we came to the planning appeal, because Stonewater appealed it, the inspector turned around and effectively said, well, could is as useful as a chocolate teapot. You know, I think it's close enough. So afterwards, now there is an issue about what Stonewater are going to do with this permission, because they need other things to happen in order for them to be able to go ahead. So we said, well, you know, we've obviously lost it on this design, but, you know, it might be worthwhile just clarifying this again, in order, in case a new applicant comes along, and then we will have, you know, a bit more clarity there. And could is definitely not clear. you know. I mean, our advisor, Neil Homer, basically laughed when we said could. So I think we were ill-advised by Milton Keynes on this. So we've been in discussion with David Blandammer, and he's sent along some further wording, which frankly I struggle to understand, but it's something like the design should have regard to its surroundings or something like that. I mean, frankly, it could equally well mean it takes its design cue from Malting's Field, which is something we really don't want because Malting Field backs onto it. It doesn't face it in the way that Paddock Close does. So the suggestion that the neighbourhood plan steering group came up with was that we should just revert to the original wording of should, if he will accept that we add in the sentence there, which is actually only a statement of fact, which is that Paddock Close has got bay windows, recessed porches, etc. Fine. If he won't accept it, just revert to what is a previously examined and approved phrasing of should. And Steve just felt that, as we were fed, this was only in the last week, that it would be appropriate for us to come to parish councillors. It's a change to the neighbourhood plan proposal. So I just really, I mean, I'm guessing this is we're probably talking about life on Mars a bit here, but I mean, you know, does anyone have any concerns about that? Particularly those of you not on the steering group. Can we go ahead with should then? Yeah, thank you. Right, the next thing is that I need to call this up, I'm afraid.
Hello?
No, yeah, so hang on, Ian. I'm just trying to find a file to read out. My apologies. Right, and I'm going to share this now, and I'll read it through for Ian. So he has sent an email. I wrote a fairly strong email to him saying that I felt that basically they had misled us over the whole Gobbies issue, because he tried to get us to say that we wanted to proceed to referendum on the basis that this was a formality to do with a misstep that the examiner had made. And if you remember, we said we would go forward, but on the basis that it was a formality. And it turned out not to be a formality, because the examiner then submitted a revised report, which instead of giving two options, which was to include Gobbies as a local green space or not, he just said not. And I said, well, that's not what you asked, you know, we agreed, and you shouldn't assume that you know, that we have resolved to proceed to referendum on this. You can see that in this bit here I'm showing you. So he's then written back and basically gone on about process, and saying, you know, they didn't have the power to do this and they had to go, and they've even taken council's opinion. And frankly, that's not really, I mean, it is a point, but it's not really the point that we're talking about. It's really about proceeding forward with the designation of Gobbies. Now, I should say that Neil Homer has submitted a few minor changes to this, which just clarify things. But what I'm proposing that we write to David Blandammer is that, you know, well, it wasn't on our agenda, and it's not formally on our agenda, but I mean, actually, the real point is that we will not make a decision on whether we're going to proceed to referendum until we've had a discussion with Milton Keynes Council about the view that they are going to put in the paper for delegated decision. So, you know, I'm saying here we're expecting to have a further discussion with you following the team's call on the 5th of January. And by the way, they have been appalling on their timescale on this. I mean, this goes back to last August. You know, we wrote them in September, and it took us from September through to the 5th of January before we got a meeting with them to discuss what had happened. And now we've got another month, and all he's come back with is some stuff about process, not actually addressing the main issue at all. And what we're saying here is the substantive point is that we're asking Milton Keynes Council to use its powers to designate Dobbies as a local green space for all the reasons that we've given, which is basically to do with usage. We appreciate the assistance you've given us before, and in particular in preparing the evidence report, where, you know, they specifically told us to break out the data into a separate, proper formatted report, which Russell did. And you need to remember this, the point that Neil Homer, our consultant, made. You know, we did all this in the pre-submission plan with their support. We then submitted it to them. They then did a consultation to which they received a response from the landowner, which was, don't designate this. But nonetheless, without making any changes, they then passed it on for examination, which implied they were then happy with it in that form after that consultation. We feel that that demonstrated their support for designation, or they would have told us after submission to remove it, because they took it on to examination. The examiner had exactly the same information that Milton Keynes Council did, but came to a different decision, but without stating any reasons. I mean, we can speculate why, but we really shouldn't in public forum. And we're saying, we're asking you to designate it, but if not, you've got to tell us why you've changed your position from that going right up to examination, and what precise criteria we've got to meet, you know, and repeating, you know, we had an initial examination in which we asserted use of the field, which is what Diane Webber and Neil Homer said is normal. And if any of you want to see how a normal local green space designation is done, have a look at the Hanslope neighbourhood plan, and you'll see it's got 2 paragraphs in this section, Han 8, policy Han 8. But the examiner said, no, that's not evidence. So we then did the survey, if you all remember that. And it was a very big survey, and we took it to a second examiner, and she said, no, that's just anecdotal. Well, I have to tell you, that's not what I understand by anecdotal when you do a survey and get results in, and it's a tabulated survey. So for this plan, if you remember, we were given video evidence from a resident, not something we commissioned, and we counted. In fact, Leo Dunwoody counted up all the use, you know, the people that were using the whole field, not just the footpath across it, and presented that. And without any explanation, the examiner just said, oh, no. So I really feel very strongly that they've got to either agree with us and agree with their previous position, or they've got to give reasons why they're changing their mind. And I think we need to resolve this before the parish council can reasonably ask for a decision as to whether it's going to referendum. And he's talking about going for a delegated decision on the 23rd of February. And, you know, it may well be that we can't discuss this again until the 1st of March. But you know, they have these weekly delegated decision meetings, so they'll just have to move it. I'm very cross with them. I don't think it's going. You know, I don't think they're being fair to us actually as a parish council. Even if they say no, they've got to say why. Just as an aside, I think the 24th of March may be a deadline if we want the neighbourhood plan go to referendum on the 6th of May, because that's the day when notice of elections have got to be made. And it may be the same date, but I'm not quite sure. So I'm really asking for your agreement. In principle, with these words, I do need to change a few of them with the comments that Neil Homer sent through, which I haven't had a chance to incorporate. But I'd just like your view on this. if I stop the share now, and we can just see what councillors feel about this. Steve.
Yeah, just to reiterate what we discussed earlier, Phil, can you remove the, as it was not on the agenda, that's not the reason we can't make the decision now.
No, I will do, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do. Was everyone else happy with this? Andrew, did you, John?
I'm very happy what you're proposing, Chair, but I'll just go back to the last parish forum we attended, where we were told how MKC really wants to get very close and help and understand and encourage parish council in their locality, which this flies in the face of it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there are some issues to do with the fact that the neighbourhood planning portfolio has been given to the urban design team, who are not planners, and I think this is moving into the hard category, and they're not equipped to deal with hard. Andrew, did you want to speak?
I think you may have just kind of jumped in on exactly what I was going to say, Chair. I think that is where your problem is. I mean, from the meeting that you and I and George and a number of others had, and without me sort of commenting on the substantive bits of it and what the basis of the argument is, I think what you've got is dear old David Blandam, if I can call him that. Although I think when you read through this, like you, I'd rather start if you run out of patience now. David's almost been given this by default because, either he got a bit of capacity or something, and he was a planner once upon a time years ago. He's got a planning qualification, but he hasn't exercised as a planner for a number of years. To put neighbourhood planning under urban design, just to me, is a complete and utter dog's breakfast of a misfit. And I suspect, truthfully, that this is probably the first of these issues they've had where actually either a parish council or a body that's sponsoring a neighbourhood plan have really come to blows and had differences with the inspector who's done the examination of their neighbourhood plan. And if I'm honest, it came across almost as if David and Andrew Turner, who's his immediate line manager, were almost caught in the headlights in the meeting that we had with them, and really don't know how to respond to this. They're seeing, on the one hand, an examiner coming up with something, and on the other hand, a parish council putting up a reasonably pretty good coherent argument as to why actually things should be different. And I suspect they're struggling to find you an answer, if the truth be known. And the reason being, I go back to the fact that it isn't under planning, it's under urban design. And poor old David isn't being particularly well supported because those above him who would ordinarily support him if he was in planning just haven't got the knowledge to do it. I'm wondering if a conversation, I mean, we haven't got a director of planning anymore. Tracy Dark has gone and hasn't yet been replaced. We have got John Palmer, who's head of planning, who obviously you have tried to engage with on this, and he's been very clear, look, it's not my bag. I've got to send you to Neil Sainsbury and his team. I'm therefore wondering if a conversation with Tracy Aldworth, who kind of oversees all of them, she's actually the deputy chief exec, and I don't think the detail of Castlethorpe's neighbourhood plan is something she'll want to get involved in at all. But the concept that actually this might be resolved far more easily if planning were involved in this, not urban design, is something that I think we absolutely ought to encourage you to be involved in and cite this as an example. Do you want me to try and set up a conversation with Tracy yourself? I've got to be honest, and I know I'm saying this publicly, Leo's been incredibly supportive of this process. I don't think I want to let him loose on Tracy Aldworth, having seen some of the email exchanges. I'm quite happy to let him loose on David Blandam, but not on Tracy Aldworth. I mean, do you want me to try and set the conversation? Is what I'm saying. Maybe with yourself and either Steve or Russell or somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I think it ought to be a relatively small number of us, but I think that would be good. And I think really, I have tried escalating to John Palmer when we had the post-mortem on the planning appeal. I spoke to John and the case officer was there actually, but and I said to him, look, I told him the difficulties that we're having, and he basically said, look, this isn't me. I am, this doesn't come under me. This comes under Neil Sainsbury.
And he's absolutely right. He had to give you that answer,
yeah.
Phil.
So really, if Tracy is going to help us, and she can't, as I would expect, give us chief deputy, chief exec in the middle of dealing with a pandemic, she may not want to get into this, but she might be prepared to, say, ask John Palmer, either personally or one of his senior people, to support David Blandammer, professionally, as opposed to the urban design team who don't have the skill set.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I'm suggesting. Do you and somebody else from the parish and me want to have a meeting if I can get it set up?
Yes, please. Yeah, let's do that. Right, and is everyone else happy with me responding to this? Russell, do you want to speak?
No, I was just saying I was happy with it.
All right, okay. Okay.
I was literally, before Andrew spoke, going to ask if there was any proper planners that we could actually run it past. So I think Andrew just went there, to be honest. So that's fine.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, then we'll move forward on this then. Right, we've got two nice easy ones now. 7.3 is to have the war memorial professionally cleaned. We cleaned it just over, I think it's 5 years ago, was it? It's 2000.
5 years.
Yeah. In fact, actually, it must be more than that. Oh, it's 5. No,
It's 5 years.
5 years.
Sure.
And we did say that we would try and clean it about every 5 years to keep it looking nice. Steve, you've got the, I don't know if you've got an up-to-date quote, but otherwise, have you?
I did. The person that did it last time got in touch with him again, and he's quoted £500 to do it. Now, given that he made such a good job of it last time, he said that no lettering needs replacing. So last time I think it was 680. This time it's £500. I'm suggesting that as he made such a good job of it, it's really it'd be foolish to go and get other quotes and go with a maybe slightly cheaper quote at the risk that he won't do such a good job.
Yeah.
So I'm recommending that we actually engage him for £500 to do the cleaning.
Does anyone want to speak before we go to a vote?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, at the moment, I don't think it's very good to clean anything. So as damp as it is, it will go green very quick again. B, I see they've cut the chestnut hedge back, but we do need the tree cut back because the green vegetation, the green algae will come back down on it. And with this damp weather, it will go green very quick again. I've got nothing against doing it at all.
Okay.
Just needs to be done at the right time in the right place.
Right. This isn't to be done immediately. You're quite right. This is not the weather to do it. It would be done, I would guess, April, May. We just want to get it into the chap's schedule for the early summer.
I've got a problem with that.
Yeah. Okay. And as far as the trees are concerned, I mean, I've been raising this quite a number of times. They have cut back the lower branches. As I think I reported to a previous meeting, you may not have been at it, Ian. When I talked to Luke about cutting those trees back further, he said, quite honestly, if you cut them back, their trees are going to become so unbalanced, they may become unstable. I have to say, looking at the branches, it does look a bit that way. They are. I wish they'd been trimmed back a lot more when they were smaller, but we are where we are, sort of thing.
Yes, at the end of the day, yes, we perhaps need to have 3 or 4 parish councillors, have 2 or 3 tree proper people to look at the whole job round the whole churchyard.
Well, you have raised that, but it's not
our... I have raised it, I will raise it again, I'll keep raising it.
Yeah, but it's not our responsibility, it's the church's.
Well, you've got to work with everybody and anybody and everybody in the village, all shapes and sizes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to... All right. I mean, let's just focus... Look, can we just focus on...
Back door again.
Yeah, if we just focus on this. I really just wanted to move, therefore, to a straightforward vote whether we're going to approve this £500 for the cleaning to be done in the spring, as Ian has pointed out. Yeah, all in favour. Thank you. Right, the next one, again, I hope is relatively straightforward. I have sent a note out on the tree planting in the fish ponds. You know, we were looking at putting in 3 trees there. The tree that's sort of just offset at the back of John's, there's an issue. A, Milton Keynes Council said they'd pay for it, which is very generous of them. B, the Historic England have said that they think that the boundary of the scheduled ancient monument is 4.5 meters from the back of the fence, which I personally don't think is correct, but there you are. I've left it really to Milton Keynes Council, the tree inspector there, and Historic England to sort it out between them whether they're prepared to put a tree in. I think they can just put one in within the 4.5 meters at the back there, and it was the smaller tree that we approved, if you remember. The tree that fell down recently by Gobbiesfield, that can be replaced, and that's the one that I'm asking for authorization now. The third tree, which was going to be on the flat ground or in the middle of the flat ground at the top of the long slide, that definitely is within the scheduled ancient monument, and the Historic England have just said no, you just can't put it in there. So I think we just have to accept that we're not going to win that one. So on this, I'm asking really for agreement to go ahead with that one tree. We don't have a price at this point because the original price, which was £1,000, was for all 3 trees, together with hydrating sacks and so on. So we don't know what one tree would be. But I'm sure it would be within the clerk's discretionary expenditure. I'm really just asking that we agree that when we get that quote, rather than sort of bringing it round to yet another parish council meeting, we can just allow Steve, if it's within his discretion, to go ahead and authorise that.
Can I suggest, Chair, that just in case something crops up which needs me to actually use my discretionary spending power, the parish council approved to an amount of £500.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So can we approve then? I propose that we approve up to £500 for the tree.
As long as it's a decent tree and our native trees.
I shall text you in with what tree that they're actually putting in there.
Steve, not a problem at all.
Right. Okay. Andrew, did you want to say something?
I did, but I think Dave was before me, and he might want to pull what remaining area he's got out before I do mine.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. I mean, that was the expression I was going to use. First of all, I'd like to say thanks, Phil, because I've looked at some of the correspondence you've had with Hysterical England, and it's just unbelievable that they. I mean, I'm very pro-tree, and I think most people should be, but it just beggars belief.
Yeah. I
mean, it really does. We're not asking to build a block of flats here. We're talking about planting a tree. Perhaps this is just because they're losing the battle against HS2, they seem to be picking on parish councils. So anyway,
so it's okay if you can find a tree that's not more than 15 inches deep. They'll allow that.
Yeah. Okay, Dave, no problem.
God help us.
Andrew, did you want to speak? I'll give you next.
It gets really quite boring when I spent about the last 18 years of my life on Milton Keynes Council and Dave Hines on Castlethorpe Parish, because we seem to agree all the time. It gets a bit dull in the end. But yeah, I mean, he's absolutely right. The only thing I was going to comment, and please take this in the spirit that it's intended, Phil, if you're going to leave Milton Keynes Council and Historic England to try and sort something out, you'll still be waiting for the tree when I'm your age. I'm therefore suggesting that you might just like to at the same time do a bit of backside kicking. It's not really going to make any difference to what you've agreed tonight, because it sounds like Milton Keynes Council will pay for it if they can get agreement. But I don't think you'll get anything done or any agreement if you just leave it to them, which I think were your words. You might need to do a bit of backside kicking to get it moved. Just one other thing to entertain you. I'm sure you haven't got enough on your plate with neighbourhood plans already.
Yeah. I mean, it's a matter of energy here. John, would you like to? You had your hand up.
Yes, please, Chair. Just 2 points. I mean, firstly, the principle of smaller trees at the back of properties is a principle worth retaining, I think, and I'm pleased that we're talking about a mulberry instead of a sycamore. So that would make more sense. And the second thing is very much following something David said, and that is that Castle Field had some trees running from the sports field all the way along. They've been cut down. They're actually still in the field. And I would have thought that's been planted already, so I can't see what objection there would be to put trees in there.
Those trees aren't actually planted in the field, John. They're outside the field.
No, they're not. They're in the field.
No, they're in the field.
The one that came down.
No.
I'm talking about Castle Field.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
If I can just clarify, I mean, the point about the Milton Keynes tree at the back of John is that all of that row of trees, which were planted in 1973, are getting close to end of life. The one that's immediately behind John looks very close to death now. The next one along is creaking very badly, so the resident who's there tells me. The next one is the one that's already gone over. So they're all getting close to end of life. And if Historic England are just going to say, well, we shouldn't, we can't replace any of those trees, I think that's very, very sad. And John, in a conversation earlier today, did point out to me that when those trees were planted, they were all, the location for them being planted was all well outside the SAM designated area. And if you look at the area, you can see there's a big flat bit of area, then there's a kind of little dip, which is the path, which everyone thinks is the edge of the SAM, and then you've got the mounds. So, I mean, I think that would be a great pity if we can't do that. So I may put the occasional prod in, but, there is, you do run out of the will to live on some of these things, dealing with these people. Going up to Castle Field, I mean, again, we've had the whole of Castle Field is designated as a scheduled ancient monument. If you go to the northern boundary by the sports ground, I personally think that's actually beyond the actual monument itself. The mounds have stopped considerably well away from that fence, and there are a number of trees planted in the field along there. And really following on from an email exchange that I had with Dave, where we were looking for other places where we could plant trees, I asked Historic England if we could plant along that boundary, because it really is well away from the scheduled ancient monument. But on the maps, it's shown that the monument is there. She's come back and said, no, you just can't do it. So I've been up there, I've taken some more photographs, showing where the mounds and all the rest of it are and where the existing trees are. I've sent her satellite views from Google showing where the trees are and where the flat ground is, and asked them to reconsider. But I haven't heard back from them. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know what else I can do, to be honest, Dave.
Could we forward David Attenborough's email on to her?
Can I step in here now then?
Yes, do step in.
The 4 trees down by the 4 or 5 trees are put down by the sports ground in Castlefield were dug up by what the parish council put in up past my farm on the right, on my side of the farm, on the piece of grass verge. Bert Tapp got Philip Sawbridge to dig them 4 trees up and put them in there in Castlefield. Where you had the flood the other week, there was an oak tree you always used to swing on, and there used to be 3 big pine trees on the bank behind Castle House.
Yeah. Well,
I could take you back and even in behind John Keane, there used to be 2 bloody great big trees. And has the parish council registered it? It belongs to the parish council.
No, but
because if you don't, somebody could go and buy it for a tenner and they could plant as many as they like.
No. Well, look, Ian, I mean,
you're
right.
You're doing some things your way, but you won't listen to old school. Old school comes back and kicks you.
Ian, I understand exactly the point you're making, but the fact that trees were planted there before, I mean, particularly at the back of John's, I just think it would be a crying shame if Historic England used their powers, such as there are, to stop us planting along there. And similarly, I've asked them to reconsider where the boundary of the SAM should be in Castle Field, because I don't think it ought to run right up to that northern fence. But look, this is just for information. It's you know, I think we probably ought to move on from there. It's we'll see how it goes. I will let councillors know at the next meeting if there's any progress. But there we go.
I'd like to be included on any of that. Thank you.
Well, you will be if you come to the meeting, Ian.
I'm here.
Right. Let's move on then. 7
That's in between meetings when you all meet up.
We don't. We don't. Right. 7.5 is a consideration of the proposal for food and drink evenings at the sports ground, which we've heard from. I'm going to do a simple proposal that Russell and the sports ground committee take this forward as the COVID situation develops. Anyone want to speak, or can we just go to a vote? Okay.
As long as I know what's going on, not a problem.
You're on the sports ground committee, Ian. So
yes, I know.
Yeah, right. So you'll know. Right. Moving then, the next one, 7.6, is a new model code of conduct. I looked at this, and I think this is actually I don't know why they've asked us to comment on it, because it's actually the Local Government Association recommended model code of conduct for borough councillors. Now, we wouldn't sign up to this until an equivalent version is handed down to us by NALC, the National Association, and it's got phrasing in. I mean, I'm sure it won't be a lot different, but it's got phrasing in there like, if Andrew receives a gift worth more than 25 quid, he's got to report it to the monitoring officer. Well, we don't have a monitoring, we wouldn't report it. Oh, look, he's got something there. Actually, it's all, but, you know, I mean, the wording has got to be changed because it wouldn't be to the monitoring. It's that sort of thing. So my proposal is we just note this and move on, really.
I think, Chairman, they're asking you what your expectations will be of the behaviour of your ward councillors. I think it's a very fair question to ask, bearing in mind that the behaviour of me probably falls well below what you would expect from your borough councillors most of the time. I won't speak for George.
Okay. Russell, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, the actual document does have the Milton Keynes Council's responses to it on, which basically are what I think that we would think. For instance, the £25, they would like the limit raised, and various other things as well, which seem to be perfectly reasonable to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just didn't. I mean, I read. You know, I mean, I saw their different percentages wanted it 25%, some lower than 25%, some higher than £25. I mean, it's, you know, but anyone got the energy to discuss this? Anyone read it?
I have.
Right.
I spent an enthralling evening reading it.
That confirms what I thought, Russell. You must be sad, because I have as well, and I'm sad.
Yeah.
Sad boys unite.
Ian, have you got any comments?
Pass. Do not collect 200. Not 25 quid. Do not collect 200.
Okay. We're happy to defer this, yeah? Right.
Yeah, until we get a full print out.
Full print out.
Right. You
Right.
don't want it. You seriously?
Ian, they're talking about trees earlier. We destroy another 10 to print all that rubbish off.
I've got to light a fire soon.
Right.
The fire's going out.
Right. Moving on then to 8.1, which is the payment schedule for this month. I'll just share this on the screen so that residents can see this. And you can see there is Steve's salary. Then we've got a payment to Neil. We paid for a day of Neil Homer's time, but because of the pandemic, they're asking for electronic payments. So Steve has very kindly said that he will pay it personally and we reimburse him, which is what this is saying. We've then
what was Neil for?
Consultation on the neighbourhood plan.
Oh, right, yep, right.
Yes, Dave's consultancy in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we've got well, we haven't got anything.
Yeah, can I? Would you mind, Chair, if I just ask Russell on that, because Stacey and Russell have spoken, and Stacey said that she hasn't been paid, but I haven't received any emails. Now I did email her saying that if she wants if she's got any outstanding invoices, can she let me have them before we discuss this? And I've not had anything from her.
Who was that?
So Russell, do we need to put anything in there for her, or?
I honestly don't know. She will be, the preschool have got some open days coming up, so she will be doing deep sanitizing in advance of those. So she will be doing some work, but basically, I don't know how much work she's actually been doing in the village hall, because there's been nothing happening there.
I mean, we don't want to kind of upset her and go looking for
I have told
her
to put invoices in for it every time she does.
By the same token,
could I ask Steve, or suggest, Steve, that you phone her and just say,
I don't think I've got a number, Phil.
Well,
I have. I'll give it to you, Steve.
Yeah, you can do that. And just while I think of it, actually, on the village hall, I believe that the Wallery may want to use the village hall. They normally use the school premises, but in these times, I think the school is not, completely happy that Wallery would use the school. I think, and they may approach you, Russell, or Karen Russell, I guess.
They haven't approached me or Karen anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to let you know, they may do that. It depends. I mean, maybe the school would decide to agree. Okay, let's move through the rest of this then. Little John's Richard for emptying our bins, RTM for the landscaping, Little John of the auditors, various work from Tag Lever.
Yeah, that their invoices that I've been asking for going back to about April, I think.
Yeah. Well,
what's Tag Lever for then? When you run the village hall.
Right.
Can you say again?
Billstone Flint. Does Tag Lever include him doing the little fencing round the village hall, etc., etc.?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Right. Bill Bin Store. Then we've got Marcus Young with the dog bins, including the new dog bin in the Checkers.
No, not the new one we've just asked for, Phil. That was the one he put in a couple of months ago.
Yeah, no, this is the Checkers, not the one in.
Yeah, the Checkers.
Yeah. The repainting of the street lights and the boxes that we've done. So any questions on any of that from anybody before we move to a vote to approve?
I haven't got the figures in front of me, but I'll abstain because I haven't seen everything.
Okay. In that case, can I have a proposer, please? That's Russell. And I just need to stop the share so I can see everybody. And a seconder is needed, Kay. All in favour? Right, okay. With one abstention then, agreed. Right, next one is one that we've already discussed, which is an email has been received about lack of progress by MKC in repairing the damaged road surface in Bullington End Road. This is the one where we said that we'll write to Carl Devereux and log it in the MKC system, which I will do tomorrow. Anything else on that, Steve? Have you acknowledged to the gentleman that we've received this?
Can't remember, Phil.
Yeah. If you could just let him know that we are going to escalate. Kay, did you want to say something?
Did you miss 7.5?
No, we agreed that that was going to be discussed with the Sports Ground Committee.
What, the food and drink evening?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was the trees. Yeah, sorry, going mad, that's fine. I didn't realise that was just now. I thought you said we had to discuss it now rather than later.
Go back to sleep, Kay.
Yeah. Right. Any other business for noting or including on a future agenda?
Yeah, the shambles over the bins this weekend. have we heard back from Milton Keynes Council as to the sudden change of heart?
Well, I don't believe that they are having a sudden change. I mean, I wrote really, I'm afraid to say, a very aggressive note to Penny Fletcher, Kevin Wilson and Nick Hannon, basically telling them they were inept. For, first of all, I mean, it's understandable that they lost a day due to ice.
Yeah.
You've got to operate in safe conditions. They said they'd postpone till Saturday. They must have these schedules well known as to how long it's going to take to do Castlethorpe and Hanslope and the other missing visitors on their round. I don't know whether they were short-handed, though I'm surprised it would be more than one vehicle doing it. But anyway, there you go. And they didn't do it. We haven't had an explanation as to why not. We then had questions on Facebook, which Andrew answered with a letter that an email he'd received from MKC saying it was going to be today, Monday, and then followed up a little bit later after we had posted it and Russell had posted it, saying put the bins out on Monday, bring them in and put them back out on Monday, saying it was going to be this coming Friday to preserve the schedule for other parts of Milton Keynes. To which I said, well, why are you making us wait 2 weeks to preserve other people's schedules? And by the way, you're not going to, Facebook and the website are wonderful, but not everybody reads them. And there are going to be bins out. And furthermore, I sent them photos. I walked the village on Sunday and I took some photos, and you could see that some people had what they call advanced their bins. They've piled them all up together to make it easier for the bin collectors. You really think that people are going to go back and pick theirs out of those piles? I had a resident complaining today that, she put her bins out the front and someone else had now piled all theirs on top of it. And she said, what am I meant to do? So I said, well, do what you can to take your own back. But, otherwise, and I said to Penny Fletcher, the only way we can communicate in the village is by leafleting. But these bins are going to be left out all week. They're only in black plastic bags. We have to put food waste in them these days because we're not doing the green bins, but again, for reasonable reasons. And that means they're going to get attacked by cats and rodents and things. So you're going to clean them all up. So I know Penny Fletcher then rang you this morning. And she's probably terrified to ring me, Steve. Did she say anything?
Well, my beef with her was more about the communication and why ward councillors were told A, before the parish councils rather than at the same time, and B, why the information that we received 2 days after the event contradicted what was told to ward councillors, which Andrew has in the meantime explained. But so I didn't actually dwell on the why haven't you collected our rubbish like you told ward councillors you were going to do it. It's more, why didn't you tell us what you told the ward councillors?
Yeah, and I did add that. Kay, you've had your hand up patiently for a long time. Let Kay go first.
I suppose I'd just like to say, to be honest, that in these very strange times, I don't think anybody knows how many staff they're going to have. We have absolutely no idea. They've already, I'm on the defence here for the bin men, okay? I know that those bin men that come round, they work their flipping socks off.
Oh, yeah.
They've been asked to work Saturdays, Sundays. They've been asked to work later when they can.
Here.
Yeah, but it's not the bin men we're criticising.
Nobody's attacking the bin men.
Nobody's criticising the bin men.
Sorry, please let Kay finish.
Okay, so, and I get that the communication wasn't great, but from a perspective of somebody who works in a school, we never know how many teachers are going to be in, whether we're going to get called in at the last minute, who's going to go off to have to self-isolate, who's got COVID. So we don't know that didn't happen, and they had to change things at the last minute. So I think we just need to be very, very careful that these are not normal times and that things do happen that wouldn't normally happen, and that maybe they just didn't have the staff. And if I was them, I would be looking at playing it very carefully now, because they've already lost 2 members of their department. Just in their defence, and I'm not saying the bin men defending, what I'm saying is that decision must have been made for a reason. Yes, it's very inconvenient for us. We've got to take our rubbish back in. Okay, or we've got to leave it there. You know, that's not the end of the world. But I think that if they really didn't have that staff, then they could have found out on Sunday that they didn't have that staff, and that's why the decision had to change, because things happen at really, really short notice these days. So from a perspective of somebody who works in an establishment where we've had 2 positive cases today, whole of 1 year groups now, even the key worker students and things, they're not going to be in, plus the members of staff that were anywhere near them. So we've had to make literally really quick arrangements where other staff have got to go in, and we have that. We do actually have that other staff can go in. They haven't. So I just think we need to be very careful, that's all.
Okay. Andrew, did you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, if it helps, I can explain a little bit of the background to this. And I think Steve makes a very good point about parish clerks being informed at the same time as ward councillors. It's actually nice that we know something before you for a change, Steve, because mostly ward councillors learn something from parish clerks. But leaving that aside, George and I and Bill had emails pretty much every day last week to say, I'm really sorry, but the rubbish has not been collected in certain parts of your ward today. Represent it in the morning and we'll pick it up. Kay's absolutely right. It's been well publicised that 2 members of the Serco team have died of COVID. And I can tell you that a considerable number are still off, either self-isolating or who have got COVID and aren't going back to work yet. They are desperately short-handed, which is why it happened. It all piled up. Saturday, which was Friday's, didn't get collected for the very same reasons. Tony Brown, therefore, on Saturday night, who sends the emails out most of the time to George and I saying, I'm really sorry, there's bits in your ward that haven't been done, represent them the next working day and we'll do them, did exactly that. It was either later Saturday night or Sunday morning that one level up from Tony, and this is on Penny Fletcher's level, took the decision, we can't start another week playing catch up from the week before and just chasing our tail all week long. What we're going to do is actually have to say really sorry to you guys who were missed on Saturday. And incidentally, Hanslope got theirs collected.
Yeah,
they were completed. Castlethorpe and Havisham didn't. So there was a fair old bit done on Saturday. But I'm really sorry, you guys, you're just going to have to be the ones who lump it. Now, the point I've made going forward is that I understand, and I perfectly understand why they did it. Inconvenient as it is for 1 week, we've got to lump it. I think the communication could have been better because it did get confusing when you have 2 emails within hours of each other. That not all of us are sat in front of computers all the time and can pick up. You know, I didn't pick Saturday nights up till Sunday morning. I didn't pick Saturday dinner times up till Saturday evening. That's how it goes. The point I've made is that the ones who are most likely to be disenfranchised if this happens again are those whose normal collection day is Friday. And it isn't right that everybody who is on a Friday always are the ones who are hammered with this. So if this is going to happen again, Fridays will have to be collected on Monday. And I'm sorry, but the Monday ones will have to wait an extra week, that sort of thing. You can't have the ones who are at the back end of the week hammered every time. And I think that's the one point I've picked up. Penny was quite receptive to that. I had a reasonably affable conversation with her earlier today. And I think she got that point, that can't happen again. What I was keen to do is that I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm absolutely convinced that by the end of this week, we may not get our bins collected until Saturday because they'll be chasing their tails from Thursday and Friday. You know, they may keep up for the first couple of days, but because they're not picking up green bins, they're picking up the end of extra black bags, they're short-staffed. Things are just tough for the poor old boys at the minute. You know, I feel desperately for them. But, you know, if we get a message this week saying your bins are on Saturday, that's absolutely, well, we'll have to wear it. That, you know, Friday to Saturday isn't particularly brilliant, but we can't have one on Saturday saying we've cancelled yours for another week. And I think she got that.
Yeah. I mean, I do understand that, but, you know, they didn't actually say due to staff sickness, we're having to do this. They just said, this is what's happening. And of course, it was 2 messages within 2 hours, which is why we got cross, because residents have got their bins out. And as I walk the streets earlier today. There are just piles and piles of stuff out. And my bet is that many residents won't know what's going on and will be leaving it out on the street all week. And I think that's, if they tell us they can't do it, that's fair enough, isn't it? But not, just doing this after you've put it out, it's where it gets difficult. I appreciate if it's short notice, but then say short notice and then we'll understand. But it just sort of happened on us. Anyway, there we go. Does anyone else want to speak on this?
Can I say something now? Yes, I've had quite a few people ask me. If I went on Facebook, I'd break the bloody camera, none of you would see it. But at the end of the day, if we can't, as a parish council, do something about it and put some signs up around the village, what's been going on and why it's been going on. Because I don't blame them people, the job they're doing and how they're doing it. If they haven't got enough people, we ought to let the village know. But not everybody's got Facebook.
Well, that's exactly the point, Ian, that I made, that the only way you can inform people really in the village reliably is to leaflet it. But again, yes. you can't leaflet. A, you can't print them that quickly, and B, distributing leaflets is not really practical at this.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. You do a leaflet and say what the problem is, and I'll pay somebody to deliver it. I've got a lad who'll deliver it, and he'll deliver it every door, and I'll pay for it.
Can't do that.
You're actually not allowed to at the minute.
Can't do it during COVID because
what are we going to do then? Do we as a parish council or do we as individuals?
Ian, you cannot do that because of COVID, okay?
Right.
You cannot leaflet people at the moment because of COVID restrictions.
Right.
Okay.
And also, Ian, by the time...
but can't.
Sorry, Ian, also, by the time leaflet's printed, it'll all be sorted anyway, so it's just a waste of time.
We hope it's sorted, John. We hope it's sorted.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, come on. I think we've been round this one. Let's thank you very much for your offer, Ian. It's appreciated. Any other business? George?
Yes, Jay, going back a couple of items. You were talking about the cleaning of the War Memorial and a £500 expenditure, and Andrew and I were wondering if we could do that from ward budget.
Good suggestion, George. I was actually going to say that there are grants available that I was going to look into, but that would save me another job.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick one from me. When I went for a walk at the Bullington End, there was an old radiator left by the sign there. Has that disappeared now?
I'm not going to clean that.
Don't want you to. And I need to literally a radiator just dumped on the ground by the sign just before you go through the is it width restriction there right on Bullington End. So I don't know whether that's still there or not because I haven't been back.
Okay, could you report it?
And I just
could you report it, Kay, please?
Yeah, I'll go and check it's still there. I didn't know whether anybody had seen it because I know Darren lives up there, so I didn't know whether
it's opposite my house, Kay, so I can I'll have a look out in the morning to see if it's still there, and I'll drop you a line.
Do you know how to report this?
Wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you know how to report this, Darren, on the MKT system?
Yeah, I've got access to the system. I can find a report.
I thought you were asleep, Derek.
And I do have a question for Andrew. I was just wondering how on earth he gets the cow to stand still for so long, and getting a bit cold.
No, I have to say she's up there because the poor beggar died just before Christmas. She was my favourite show ever, and I lost her, and I'm gutted. So she's there as a reminder. But that was at Bucks County Show in much happier times, and I have to say, despite the fact I've no longer got her, I think she was a very happy lass for most of her life.
Right. Are we? Oh, John, you've got another.
Oh, very quickly, Chair, just for the cyclists in the village that may be watching, the paper done by Darren and Steve, I thought was excellent, and it's a good pointer ahead for what we can do in the village.
Yeah.
So thank you both.
Yes, thank you.
Cheers, John.
Cheers, John.
Cheers, John.
Okay, I think we're more or less at the end now then. So our next meeting is on Monday the 1st of March. And we need to start getting people wound up, Steve, for the annual village meeting on the 12th of April. Just give them plenty of notice that we would like people to. Mind you, there's not very much to report as going on in 2020, is there?
I was going to say.
So I imagine that there won't be many takers, in which case I'll just do a chairman's report.
I probably need to be the first one to be wound up on
that. Okay, well, thank you, residents that have continued watching right through to the end.
And how many are left listening in?
17 left so far.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
well
you
done.
two.
That's perseverance.
Yeah.
It's your fan club, Ian.
Yeah. So
I've got no fan club.
Ian, you're far more entertaining than Coronation
support Liverpool. I'm not a poor bugger like you.
Yeah. Go on, I'm trying to close the meeting here. So thank you all very much for listening in, and this will be available on YouTube if you've missed this meeting or want to live through it a second time.